I was hoping to leave. So, nobody knows where I am.
It's not gonna go high. You can move the table right here.
Well,
He doesn't need to be on it. No, he's stuck. It was me. I'm moving him. I'm controlling him here.
All right. I can do that.
The problem with this is that you're not going to see her power. But you're not going to be able to see her power.
well, okay, so what if you move it a little bit that way? I was just trying to get it more of a face on. Face on.
Yeah.
I wanted to have both the screen and her.
She can't. She can't. Other way she does. Okay, so just for giggles.
You can move him all you want.
Okay.
He's not good. It's not life changing. Put it back down. You can see litho when he tilted him. But I don't know how we keep him tilted the whole presentation. Also,
That's what cardboard's for. You take one of.
Oh, no, that's. Yeah. Not like that one.
Is this on, Greg? No. Here's the button. There we go. Good afternoon. First, there's no truth to the rumor that there's been a coup at the chamber. Eric Forrest is still president, and he will be until this fall. So I'm president-elect, Wayne Jensen. On behalf of myself, our executive director, Fred Gall, and our board of directors, I want to welcome all to this week's luncheon. And that includes everyone watching in on Zoom. For the Zoom members, just remember there's no questions you'll be able to do on Zoom. You have to be here in person. So please join us in person next time. Please join me in the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and I can ask chamber board members, past presidents, to stand to be recognized, please. Thank you for your service to the chamber. And let's see. Oh, and we have to welcome our dignitaries. Senate President Peter Machicki, thank you for joining us. I'd like to also acknowledge our special members, our capital members, Vista, AELP, Central Council, Alaska Airlines, Norwegian Cruise Lines, Holland America, Royal Caribbean Cruise Group, and Princess Cruise Lines, and our diamond members, Alaskan Brewery, Alaska Marine Lines, Alaska Seaplanes, Gold Belt, Hecla Greens Creek, Unit Totem, and Surge. Our benefactor members, Alaska Litho, Alaska Marine Lines, Alaska USA, Poor Alaska, Coastal Helicopters, Snow Cloud Services, LG Rayfeld, First Bank, Juneau Radio Center, Merck CPA and Advisor, Sea Alaska, Kilcorp, Fred Meyer, Wells Fargo, Altman Rogers, IGA Super Bear. Thank you all for being members. Well, it's been a busy week at the chamber, and here is Craig for an update.
So wait, do you have the golf tournament on your list?
No, that's up to you.
It's on mine.
Yeah, it's on yours.
So let me mark your calendar. July 31st.
I don't think you're not on.
Yeah, well, it's on. You can hear me, right?
All right.
Yeah. July 31st, your team study. It's the best ball scramble like we've done. It's the 7th annual ball tournament. And it's sponsored by the Junior Radio Center. And our whole 10 chip challenge is going to be even bigger this year. It's going to be sponsored by our own chip. And John Glasgow has assured us that we're having an amazing tournament. He's running really fast. I won't say any more about it. We did run a letter yesterday to weighed in with a lot of other organizations in the state and legislature to take action, resolve the budget issue, and stop using the employees of the state hostage. And I'd like to thank you as delicate and solid as possible. It's not right to make it to this point. I won't put you on the spot.
Talking to me?
We feel really important to get resolved. Everybody has the same reaction. Obviously, there's some stuff spending money. Yeah, what's going to happen? We can say, I'm sure it'll get resolved. I'm not going to write that check today. Maybe tomorrow. This is not the time to start impacting the business community. It's going to have to go. We'd like to see the decision made, and not next week. We'd like to see the decision. That's all I have.
How about the vaccination program? You want to talk a little about the vaccination program?
Sure, okay. So as you know, we received $45,000 as part of a $1 million grant that came down to the Department of Health and Human Services. We've been using that. We went out and purchased $40,000 of gift cards. We've been giving those away to the vaccination. Right now, we've been in the second shot. We get $40 gift cards for businesses. And your name will go to the $1,000 cash prizes. We're trying to get the community to level 1 to see. Not there yet. 70%. I don't know if we're going to make that number. We're going to get close. What about you? I want to put my mask away. I'd like to get the you know anybody that hasn't gotten the vaccination? Don't even do that.
If you share our Facebook post, you'll be eligible for those $20 gift cards. So go on our Facebook page and share posts.
There goes Laura.
I got it.
Okay, Wayne.
Okay, and so Maggie, we do have a red marble drawing today, right? Okay, so that's, I have two more very important messages. Today, our red marble drawing, there are 30 marbles. The red marble jackpot is worth $250. And the consolation prize is an insulated water bottle from Alaska, USA. And one other very important announcement is the restrooms are closed on this floor, but they are open on the second floor. So if you have need for the restrooms, they're on the second floor. Let's go into roundtable introductions. Craig, do you pass? Well, evidently the mic doesn't work. Let's just start at the back table and go across. Wayne, go ahead.
Thank you, Wayne.
You're welcome, Wayne.
Good afternoon, Wayne Schijvens, Southeast Alaska.
Hi, I'm David McMahon, a reporter at the Juneau Empire.
Good morning, I'm Lynn Johnson, University of Alaska Southeast.
Karen Carey, Chancellor, University of Alaska Southeast.
I'm Michelle Murphy at Fort Alaska.
Great to see everybody. John Blasco with the Alaska Brewing Company.
Little table.
Laura Martinson at Caribou Graphics. Connie Holbert, AELMP. Charlotte Schroeder with the Juneau Symphony.
I'm Connie McKenzie with the Symphony Board.
Ed King, the economics.
Scott Burton, Alaska Electric.
Table in the back.
Drew Green with Fremont Agencies. By the time I was asked to give you an expectation of what cruise ship next summer, respecting our first ship July 23rd, at the Alaska Steamship Board, and about 7 or 8 ships a week.
Hi, good afternoon. Carl Ramseth with Alaska Seaplanes.
I'm Amy Jacks with the Bank.
Ronald Reynolds, Southeast Conference, and I get to introduce two new staff. Juliana Boleen is coach from the Hill, and very welcome. And Sarah is the executive assistant there in the office. So we hear from both of them from time to time. But this is the first day.
Welcome.
Meilani, Schijvens, Raincoat Debt.
Some Schijvens, both from associates, and I was going to be online for attending online, but I was told this morning I had to be here.
Jim Park, Meilani's there.
Cherie Crew, Juneau Radio Center, and Juneau Symphony Board. board member, and I'm excited for my friend, lifelong friend, here in Schijvens, president.
Thank you. It's nice to see everyone, anyone else, but who I've been seeing the last 375 days. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. We can't fail on one big job. And our effort here is to get done this week. So hopefully we have good news very shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Good luck.
Jim Becker, Diapex Center, Hatchery. As well, the mayor and also the shop.
Mary Becker, last committee, I should say that because Wayne's the chair. And right now I'm serving on the committee that is raising money for the Hill Street Center, which is going to house nonprofits in our community. And so if you want to know more about it, talk to me or Wayne, talk with people. I think it's a wonderful project and it only needs $6 million. Piece of cake, right?
Those are thank you, Alaska Committee, Department of Hospital Board, and First Sisters.
Murray Walsh, Planning and Development Services. Talk to me after about the increase in commercial property values. I have a few things to say about it.
Sarah Walsh, retired.
You always have a few things to say, Murray, so.
I think you can turn that off. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm Wayne Jensen with Jensen Global Wall Architects. And it's my pleasure today to introduce today's presenters, Meilani Schijvens and Robert Venables. They will be sharing the recent Southeast Conference Business Climate Survey, Economic Resilience Planning, and the newly released 2025 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. Ms. Schijvens is the owner and director of Raincoast Data. She holds a master's in science from the University of Oregon. Ms. Schijvens is a former executive director for Southeast Conference and continues to support and work closely with Southeast Conference. She has worked as a legislative research analyst for the state of Alaska and taught Alaska economic history at the University of Oregon, served as a staffer to the U.S. Legislative Minority Leader in Washington, D.C., and worked at the Greens Creek Mine in June as an environmental technician. Often referred to as Mr. Southeast, Robert Venables has lived and worked in Southeast since arriving in Haines in 1984. He's worked in private, public, and nonprofit sectors and is now the executive director for Southeast Conference. Robert is involved in numerous local, regional, statewide boards and commissions and has a passion for community and economic development. And Meilani assured me that this is the best presentation she's ever put together. And so with that, we welcome Meilani and Robert. And we look forward to the
Thank you so much. And it's great to be here in person. All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to be presenting our Southeast Alaska Business Climate Survey. And this is a survey that we do on an annual basis, which is great because we're able to reference back to past years and see, you know, how we've changed and how we've improved. And what we're going to do specifically today is we're going to talk about the Juneau breakout of the Business Climate Survey. And so we had 460 business owners and top business managers across Southeast Alaska participate in the survey. And that included nearly 100 business leaders in Juneau. So we had 93 Juneau business participants. So we really got a lot of really fantastic and in-depth information. So before I delve into the survey, I'm first gonna, I always like to mix in some data from the latest and greatest data from other sources into the survey data to really get a clear picture about how we're doing and where we're going. And so what I wanted to do is look at the Department of Labor came out with their jobs report on Friday. And so I wanted to look at Southeast Alaska in May of 2019 and compare it to May of 2021 and then do the same for Alaska and the US. So if you, I think I lost sound. So if you look at Alaska as a whole in May of 2021 and you compare it to May of 2019, Alaska jobs as a whole was down by 9%. If you look at the US as a whole, we're down by 5%. And if you look at Southeast Alaska, we're down by 17% of all of our jobs. So by that indicator, Southeast Alaska has been impacted about twice as much as the rest of Alaska as a whole, and more than 3 times as much as the US as a whole. So we're really a region that's just been impacted. I think one of the most impacted regions in the United States when it comes to pandemic impacts. So gives you a little snapshot there. The other snapshot I wanted to give, or Drew kind of already gave it in his introduction, was to give the latest and the greatest update on how the cruise ship season is shaping up. So right now we are planning to get 10 of the larger cruise ships. They're going to make 80 trips to Juneau. That's going to be over a duration of 12 weeks. It's going to last from July 23rd when we get our first large ship to October 20th when we have a Norwegian ship coming in the later time. We don't know exactly how many passengers are going to be related, so I've got a question mark there. But you know, my analysis is that we're going to get anywhere from 100,000 to 150,000 cruise ship passengers coming to Juneau during that period. So we'll see where that number ends up. So I always like to show you this slide. It's the what does our economy look like in a nutshell. This is 2019, and so I just really want to quickly go over what are we supposed to look like here in Juneau. So if you look at this, you can see that. So if you look at tourism was 15% of all annualized jobs in Juneau and 9% of all wages. And state government in 2019 was 18% of all state jobs annualized and 21% of all wages. So it's just kind of a good reference point as we move forward. So again, we're still on Department of Labor information. And so when we look at Department of Labor information for Juneau, and this is employment in 2020 compared to 2019, we see that we were down by 21% of all jobs in the sort of those May, June, July, summer months, with a job loss of about 4,000 jobs altogether in Juneau per month during the height of the pandemic job losses. The other thing I wanted to do is really understand where those job losses were in Juneau. So we can say that we had some job losses associated with the pandemic, but I think it's really valuable to go into the Department of Labor information and really understand where those job and wage losses were. And so when we look at the job losses for Juneau as a whole in 2020, we were down by 19% of all of our jobs. And during just the 6-month period from April through September of 2020, we were down by $39 million worth of wages. We see that the visitor industry was the most impacted. So 56% of our jobs gone and $35 million worth of wages lost. But I want to direct you to the state government line because this is one of the lines I'm most concerned about. We lost 5% of state government jobs in Southeast Alaska. I mean, just in Juneau, in just that 6-month period, which was 182 additional state jobs lost in Juneau. And so that's a number I'm concerned about because I'm not as optimistic that those jobs are going to come back as easily as the tourism jobs do, as long as we continue to support our tourism sector into getting to 2022. The other thing I also wanted to do is give a kind of more in-depth perspective into where the losses were in the visitor industry in Juneau specifically, not just that we lost jobs in the visitor industry, but where those job losses were specifically. So this is total percentage of jobs lost by tourism sector in Juneau, along with wages in just that 6-month period, April through September of 2020. So what really stands out is that scenic sightseeing and transportation jobs line. So within that sector alone, during that 6-month period, we lost nearly 1,000 jobs in Juneau with wages of $20 million. And when you get down to airlines, the airlines lost a third of their workforce in Juneau, 36%, but it was the second highest wage loss. So we lost $5 million in terms of wages lost in the airline sector in Juneau. So I just wanted to kind of give some of those top line data numbers before we move on into our business climate survey results. So business climate survey, as we mentioned, we do it every year, and it's a great partnership between Southeast Conferences and lots of organizations across our community, like the Juneau Chamber. And so we do a breakout for Juneau. We also do a breakout for Petersburg, Skagway, Haines, Ketchikan, Rainbow, I think. So we do a lot of breakouts across, because we want community leaders to be able to support their work, their business leaders and their workforce as much as they can, to see where we are and the direction that we need to be headed, and to look where we might need the most help. So we break the survey kind of into 3 different areas. We look at the past, the present, and the future. And so just to make it really easy in terms of flow, we'll start with the past. So the first question that we asked was, what percentage of revenue did your business lose during the pandemic? And we surveyed at the end of April in 2021. So this question was through the end of April in 2021. And Juneau businesses reported that they lost 1/3 of their business revenue, which sounds like a really big number, and it is, but we actually did better than other communities in Southeast Alaska. So on a whole, Southeast Alaska businesses lost 42% of their revenue altogether, and you can see that that went all the way up to 61% for Skagway and 49% for Ketchikan. So those were some really, really incredible losses. So you can see that 33% suddenly starts to sound pretty good. We'll take it. Of course, when we delve in a little bit deeper to the numbers and we look at where those revenue losses were, when we look at the Juneau tourism sector, in the Juneau tourism sector, we were down by 85% of all wages. And when we compare the Juneau tourism sector to every other tourism sector across Southeast Alaska, we actually lost the most wages in the Juneau tourism sector as a percentage compared to other communities in Southeast Alaska. Another thing that we really wanted to delve into and understand is how many businesses in Juneau and in Southeast Alaska received some type of COVID relief, either in the form of a grant or a loan. And so in terms of reporting businesses, 75% of Juneau businesses had received a grant or a loan as part of the COVID relief package, which ended up being just really incredibly important. I thought this was a really important number, so I highlighted it. 1/4 of Juneau businesses said that without that monetary infusion, they would have closed permanently. So the relief funding was just incredibly valuable in keeping our businesses afloat and our economy moving forward. So we asked it, we asked this question sort of more broadly: what was the impact of the COVID relief dollars to your business? And so 53% of our businesses said that they were able to remain open during the entire pandemic due to the COVID relief that they received. And more than half said that they were able to retain employees that they would have had to fire or furlough had they not received the COVID relief. And the statistic that we just mentioned, that 1/4 were allowed, that were able to remain open, that otherwise believed that they would have closed permanently without that funding. One thing I really like about the survey that we do is we ask business owners to sort of fill out the boxes, but then also to kind of explain how it's going in their own words. And so I thought this quote worked well with the data point that we just told. This is a Juneau business tourism owner. And they said, as people get vaccinated, they are ready to get back out on the road. Prior to that, we were sure we were going to have to close our business. Thank goodness for SBA, PPP, and some grants. It kept us alive. And moving forward, we wanted to know how many businesses in Juneau continued to be at risk in Juneau and Southeast Alaska. And so at the end of April, 10% of Juneau businesses said that they were at significant risk or moderate risk of closing permanently as the pandemic continues. And again, this sounds like a big number, but when we compare it to other communities, Juneau is actually doing quite well. The communities in Southeast Alaska that have businesses that are most vulnerable to permanent closure moving forward are communities that are most dependent on cruise ship tourism, and that includes Hoonah, Ketchikan, and Skagway. If we look at businesses that reported they are not at all at risk of closure, Juneau's in the top 4, so that's pretty good. We'll stay there. That's a pretty good indicator. We also wanted to understand what industry had the most vulnerable businesses. And I'm sure you're not surprised to see that they are in the visitor and tourism sector, food and beverage, and the transportation sector. That's regionally, and this is a Southeast Alaska slide, that's regionally where we have the most vulnerable businesses that are just kind of hanging on and working to get through to 2022 is the term that we use a lot. The industries that are the least vulnerable to closing permanently include the mining sector, 100%, said nope, we're just fine. Alaska Native organizations are going to be here no matter what. Nonprofit and healthcare organizations. So a lot of the support organizations are going to be here to make sure that we are able to continue to move forward. So I'm going to mix in another number that doesn't come from the survey, and this is tracking relief dollars into Juneau and Southeast Alaska from 5 different sources. And so just to really understand how much relief money came through our communities, to our businesses, to helping support our communities as revenue was lost through other means. And so altogether in Southeast Alaska, we had over $500 million worth of funding relief through grants and loans. And in Juneau, it was $192 million has come in. And that's just been an incredible benefit to our communities and to our economy, and has really replaced those lost income dollars across our communities. All right, moving on to present day. So this is kind of a snapshot question. We say, how do you view the overall business economy right now? And so if you look at Juneau versus Southeast Alaska, so this sort of snapshot view, 75% of business leaders in Juneau say the economy is poor or very poor. And we see in Southeast Alaska as a whole, we're doing slightly better than Southeast Alaska as a whole, where 80% say that the economy right now is poor or very poor. And again, this was done at the end of April. And I didn't forward my slide. So that's looking at those Juneau numbers. So Juneau compared to Southeast Alaska. And then what we're able to do, because we do this survey on an annual basis, is look at the time series. So the nice thing about 2019, before when I used to do the survey, the numbers didn't change very much. And I was like, people really want to see another business climate survey with the numbers, and they don't change very much. But now it's really nice to know that 2019 was a very stable year. It looked a lot like it had looked in 2018 and 2017. And so in that year in Juneau, 57%, in 2019, 57% of Juneau business leaders were positive, and they said that the business climate was good or very good, versus 42% who were negative and called it poor, or just 3% called it very poor. When we moved into our 2020 survey, our 2020 survey was done in July, just as you're tracking these dates, it's usually done in April. We just had an incredible change. So 84% of Juneau business leaders called the economy poor or very poor, with just 11% calling it being positive about it. And in 2021, we see that we've come sort of halfway back. There's definitely, business confidence is improving. So that is the good news. It is 75% negative, but it's improving. And so you can kind of see how that series changes over time, and we expect business confidence to continue to improve as we move along. So looking at the Juneau only numbers, still being able to dive into there, understanding where the business confidence is at its lowest in Juneau. Again, no surprise, in the visitor and tourism sector, the food and beverage sector, and the retail and wholesale sector is where you have the lowest business confidence in Juneau right now. So the next series of questions that we asked were forward-looking in the future. How do you feel about the economy moving forward? And we asked this question in 2 different ways. The first is, we said, what is the economic outlook for your business or industry over the next year? And again, we're looking at Juneau versus Southeast Alaska as a whole. So, and again, Juneau is just slightly better. So in terms of, so Juneau is 58% positive, including 20% who say that the economy is going to get better over the next year, and 1% who say it's going to get much better, with 42% negative, including 13% who think it's going to get worse or much worse in the next year. Across Southeast Alaska as a whole, that much worse number was 22%. And again, it's nice to be able to trace it over time. So 2019, like I said, was your pretty typical year. You had 1/3 of business leaders in Juneau being negative about the upcoming year and 2/3 being positive. That totally flipped in 2020 when you had 1/3 being positive about the future outlook and 2/3 being negative. And again, we've kind of gotten halfway back. So we see the numbers have sort of improved by half. So like I said, the numbers are improving, the confidence is improving, and the forecast is improving, but we do have a long way to go. So again, looking at all communities in Southeast Alaska, what the business climate outlook is. Where we see it most negative is in Skagway, Haines, Hoonah, and Ketchikan and Wrangell. And where we see it as the most positive moving forward is Prince of Wales and Sitka. And Juneau is in the top, and we still continue to just be slightly above the Southeast Alaska average. And when we break it out by industry, I think this is really interesting that, and Maureen made a comment about it earlier, that the sector that's actually the most pessimistic moving forward is the real estate sector. And there's a lot of good reasons for that, including concern about the long-term interest rates going up, the price of timber, the decrease in use of commercial space, and the sort of housing sector that's gotten very tight. So the most negative outlook across the region is in the real estate, followed by the food and beverage sector, and tourism and the arts. I know we have a lot of people from the symphony here today. And moving forward, where you have the most business confidence projections include the mining sector, nonprofit, and healthcare. And so, like I said, I asked this 2 different ways. We asked sort of like, what's your business confidence moving forward? And also we wanted to know, are you hiring, are you firing, or do you not know? Or are you maintaining your amount of jobs? And so the next question is really about jobs. And if you look at both of these pie charts, they look pretty similar, but if you sort of focus in on those pie slices, you see that Juneau is, we have more business owners that are planning to hire than are planning to fire. So 18% of our business leaders are planning to add jobs versus 12% planning to reduce. Across Southeast Alaska as a whole, we have 15% planning to reduce jobs, while 13% are planning to add jobs. So it's a little bit flipped there. And you see, especially in the Southeast Alaska pie chart, a lot of uncertainty. And as we know, uncertainty is bad for business. So we want to make that uncertainty pie chart piece smaller so businesses can just have more certainty moving forward. Again, sort of looking at Juneau in that time scale. So we see that in 2019, it was sort of a jobs maintenance economy in Juneau. 2/3 of our businesses were really just trying to maintain the number of jobs that they had. Well, 15% were adding jobs. It really flipped in 2020, even though we did this survey in July, lots of layoffs had already happened. We still had 26% expecting to drop employment, and then to where we are now with 18% looking to add jobs over the coming year. And just looking at where we expect to add and lose the most jobs. So we expect the job losses to be mostly in Haines, Skagway, and Ketchikan, and the job gains. Sitka is the most optimistic about adding jobs to their economy, followed by Juneau. So we're number 2 in that area. So we're doing something good. And then I also wanted to look at where jobs were being added and lost by sector. So the sectors that were most looking to add or drop employment, drop employment included the food and beverage sector, the seafood sector, and the professional services sector. And the sectors that are most likely to say that they're going to be hiring in the coming year is number 1 is communications and IT sector. And of course that makes sense as so many jobs have moved online or people are working remotely or more services are moving online, you're having a growth in IT sector jobs. That makes sense. Construction after job cuts last year, we see construction projects really starting up again, and so we're adding jobs there and in the financial activities sector. So going back to the sort of business leaders in their own words, I wanted to add a couple more of them. So our somebody in the tourism sector, a business leader in the Juneau tourism sector, said, "The lack of cruise ships decreased my business by 98%. So that's one of the responses that we got. In the real estate sector, a Juneau business leader in real estate said, "As a commercial property owner, this industry has had its toughest year. Many commercial properties are hitting record low occupancy rates." In the seafood sector in Juneau, someone said, "Prices went down significantly on seafood. I had no visitor market in 2020. Local buyers were concerned with finances and did not spend as much on fish products." A business leader in our tourism sector said, "Travel and tourism are still very low going into our high season for the hotel." And again, this was in April. Bookings in the summer months usually exceed 80% occupancy, but it currently looks like 35% maybe. And so hopefully those numbers for that hotel owner have gone up, but we'll see. And then I wanted to end this section with this quote. I thought it sort of ties it all together. This is someone in the construction, architecture, or engineering sector who said, "Success of our business is subject to the success of other businesses, organizations, state and local governments. We do not stand apart." And I think that quote is just sort of beautifully indicative of everything that Southeast Conference stands for, and makes a very good segue into our next section, where we're going to talk about the what happens next. What do we do with all of this information, and how do we move forward? And we do that through working through the process of the newly released Southeast Alaska Economic Plan. And I'm going to invite Robert up in one slide to talk about this, but I wanted to first just give you a little bit of an introduction to this process. So this is the 5-year Southeast Alaska Economic Plan. It was developed over a more than a year period. We had more than 400 people from across Southeast Alaska participate: business leaders, community leaders, tribal leaders, consumers, residents, communities, really digging in and really helping us come up with the framework of a blueprint for a pathway forward. So we came up with more than 50, or the working group as a whole came up with more than 50 action initiatives, and those have all been prioritized. I know you can't read this, but you do have copies on, I think there's at least one copy per table, and it's online as well. This is the top 50 economic initiatives for the Southeast Alaska Economic Plan. And then we're going to have Robert come and walk us through the top 4 prioritized economic initiatives. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Meilani. And
I won't go too.
okay, number 2 part of his questions will mostly come towards you. But it was good to see the Senate President and Sherry sit down at the Meilani Schijvens fan club table. She does amazing work, as you can see. And our publications, as she mentioned, are online. But why do we do what we do? Well, a lot of different reasons, but primarily, number one, we are the state's economic development, regional economic development organization for all of Southeast. And that is a designation that gets reviewed and taken a look at every few years. And the legislature passed another reauthorization this year, so thank you. And a double thank you, because Senator Pacheco has always been very much a statewide statesman. He's not just from the Kenai. He's always been interested in what's happening here in Southeast. He's attended, spoken to Southeast Conference the last couple of different years. And personally, he's always made time each year to have a sit down. And I've been enjoying to be able to get to know him a little bit more and have discussions about some of the issues. And when I can't get to him directly, I get to him through my colleague, Tim, who sends his greetings as well. But the Arders actually are meeting weekly across the state via Zoom to really see what we can do to help our businesses and the communities to survive and thrive. And being a partner with the state this last year in the CARES program to make sure that those funds were distributed make sure the Department of Commerce really understood this type of information so that they could tailor the programs to where the need really is. And that'll be even more critical this year because the economic recovery is so uneven. But I also want to do a shout out to the local governments because that was an amazing amount of work and funding that was funneled through. And we actually have a nexus in the midst of all that because JEDC was the one that really processed a lot of both of those programs and did so very well. But so that was one designation that we operate under. The other designation we operate under is we're one of 4 economic development districts in the state. And that federal designation comes with an obligation to provide this kind of information to policymakers and to businesses so that we can encourage investment and job creation. And so, you know, here we are, the publications, and there are some on the table, and of course they're online, but it's not just enough to produce a great plan. We want to make sure the plan gets put into action. And so that's really what we're trying to do to up our game and make sure that the last rendition of this actually won a national award, and I'm hopeful that it'll do so again. But so where are we at? Priority number 1, as you know, we're known as a single pony program for a long time, since 1958 when we weighed in on formation for the Marine Highway System. But there's been so much information, and I was glad to see that the last couple of years of consultant work and whatnot that the state's done really lined right up with what Southeast Conference had proposed. And again, the legislature unanimously passed a bill that calls for specific expertise to be put on the advisory board for the Marine Highway System. And very little gets through it unanimously these days. And so I really want to say another thank you to leadership for getting that through. Not quite sure what the governor's going to do with it, but we're hopeful that even his original bill called for that expertise to be on there. So I think there's a general recognition that has to happen. Regardless, as soon as the governor does what he's going to do with that bill, we're going to advocate for a lot of changes that we've been listing up and ready to go. So the next item is really something new. As much as we want to support current businesses and make sure they're healthy and thriving, we're looking for new opportunities as well. And mariculture has a chance to be perhaps a $100 million industry in the state of Alaska. And Southeast Conference has made a commitment to trying to do what we can to fast forward those efforts here. And I'm really pleased with the partnership that we have with the university. President Pitney and Chancellor Carey have already begun work to try to put on an event this next spring that we're collaborating with them on. And there's just a lot of interest and opportunity both within the region, the state, but even outside the state, because Alaska has some very unique opportunities there. So we're really excited about what we see on the horizon for the mariculture industry. And then, of course, we know what devastation has happened to the tourism industry in Southeast and across the state, and doing whatever we can to help restore that sector and get it back on its feet. The state just awarded quite a bit of money out of the CARES program just in the last grant this past month, almost $2 million coming into Southeast Alaska, and a portion of that coming to the Southeast Conference, where we're going to facilitate those conversations, make sure that those efforts not only meet the needs of the grants parameters, but that we come out of that stronger with products, both photo and video, that can help in the long run and make sure that the entire region is covered very well. So we're working with Liz and Travel Juneau and all the stakeholders across the region to make sure that those short-term goals can actually achieve long-term benefits as well. And then energy has always been one issue that is just a cornerstone for economic development. And early on, Southeast Conference has been very involved on the generation transmission side. Congress actually passed a law that recognizes the Southeast Conference Intertie Plan. And that's been on the books. We've been very involved with generation projects like this one that's in Sitka, but also early on the intertie sections between Ketchikan and Wrangell, the Swan-Tai intertie, even the intertie over to Greens Creek Mine was spearheaded by Southeast Conference board members, David Stone and Jason Conley and Dave Carlson, and different ones that really kind of brought that together with the intent of hopefully going to Huna, but the economics didn't work out for that. So we're looking at generation that's more close by, and that's Huda's seen their first and looking at their second hydro facility there. Cake just commissioned one as well. We're wanting to support the one in Angoon, there in Creek. But now taking a look at not just the generation transmission, but taking a look at how we apply that to everyday life. And Juno, again, AEL&P has just been a great leader in electric vehicle. There's a good support group with that as well. But just, because it's both availability and the support for rate structures and chargers and so many different things that's really set the example for the state and the nation. And so we appreciate the work that AEL&P has done on that regards. But heat pumps and the different things that can really change the application of everyday life and how we benefit by electricity that is hopefully as renewable as possible. So that's what we're looking at. And what's what? Oh, okay. So I can't see it on my screen here, but so we were taking a look at our mid-session summit and beyond different measures that we should be focused on in this intro. And so just to highlight a couple of these there, well, you can see there, but a lot of them are some short-term efforts. Of course, rolling out the vaccine, which means that we can get reopened for business. We don't have to be as mask-oriented, although I was getting quite a cool collection of masks, and I still carry at least one with me just in case you just find that individual you need to talk to, and without that being the subject. And so, we've seen a lot of these issues are important to get our businesses up and going and healthy. And so these are some of the initiatives there that we are working on. And so there's the vaccination rates. We're getting close, and Juno really leads the pack. And Southeast, especially Northern Southeast, has done really, really well. And then I should have put a note up there about our annual meeting, which is going to be in Haines, September 14th through 16th. And that is, they were already in the queue, but it's one of those things where it's a really great opportunity for us to really support a community that's been having so much devastation and hurt over this last year and a half as well, to support them. So we'll have a lot more information on that. We're just getting ready to crank out the registration, and that is a recap of where we're at, where we're going, and got a couple minutes for questions,
Yeah,
maybe?
we do. We have some questions. We have about 5 minutes for some questions, if there are any.
My question is for Meilani. That number 192 million of loans and grants for businesses, is there a breakdown of how much of that was loans and how much of that is grants? I'm looking at 150,000 cruise ship passengers. That's still less than 10%, and I'm wondering how much of that is debt versus fee.
I don't have that breakout. We can work to get it for you, but that is an issue. So people are. We have heard in those breakout comments, businesses that say, it was great to get the grants, it helped me through, but now I'm more in debt because I was in debt going into the 2020 season, and now I got some more grants to help me through, but now I'm more in debt. So we will. I think part of it, a lot of those started as grants and started as loans and got transferred into. Some of them got transferred into grants, and so I think it's just a matter of waiting to see what that loan to grant ratio was. But that's a really great comment. It's not all free money.
Rosemary?
So a question for Meilani also. Did any of your sort of higher level numbers take into consideration of the inflation that we're seeing now, the higher cost for things, and also issues related to supply chain?
Sure. Rosemary's question is just a great question. The survey was done at the end of April, and the data that we're getting from Department of Labor is a little bit older than that. And the inflation numbers that we've seen that are coming out are pretty new. They're sort of April, May, June. And they're really driven by things like the car market, actually, nationally, is one of the things that's really driving up that sort of really short-term inflation increases. So I think we saw a little bit of that in the housing market, in real estate, but we see seafood prices going up this year, and so that was definitely helping out some of our seafood producers, our fishermen. But we didn't. Other than that, we haven't seen that. That wasn't that apparent in the survey, you know, as a time case at the end of April. So it didn't come through very strongly in our survey, but it's something that we're feeling more and more as the months go by.
Like the grocery store.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
We
freight.
have time for one more if there's another question. Do.
Yeah, I was just, I guess, Meilani as well, I was just thinking, I don't know if you had any anecdotal information about coming, came out of a dark winter, went back into one again. As the nation recovered, we're going to go back into recession. Is there any indication of business closures anticipated after this winter? Survival rate?
Yeah, so you know, that's a great question. There's not a easy data place where you can go and find out how many businesses have closed. Businesses tend to close over a longer period of time. And so there's not sort of one-stop shopping there. And that's sort of one of the elements that we were trying to understand by when we asked about, you know, are businesses at risk at closing in the long term. So we have that 10% in Juneau vulnerability rate. It's very hard to get people whose businesses is already closed to fill out our surveys. So it's not a very good source of information for that. And Robert, do you have a comment?
Yes, you know, and there's also another tranche of the ARPA funds, you know, the rescue plan funds that will be coming out. One of the things we're constantly keeping our finger on the pulse of is trying to figure out how to make the recommendations to see those applied where the most need is. So taking a look at changes to the CARES program so it's not limited to only 50 employees, making sure that certain things like insurance can be eligible for expenses, and trying to keep our finger on the pulse so that that's not an issue come this fall, because we know that, you know, with you know, 100,000 plus passengers that may come in, that's what 10%. Nobody's being made whole by these companies. Nobody's going, you know, going to get rich on those. So it's an ongoing thing. It's too early to tell, but that's kind of feedback that we're trying to give to our policymakers.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Meilani.
Thank you so much.
Meilani, I hope that next year's report has you a lot of changes that you can report on, so it's not static to this report, and it's a lot more positive. So, but thank you very much.
We'll all be working on that.
Okay, very good. Red marble drawing. Maggie. She's drawing that. Our next week's program will be Rose Lawhorn, CEO of Bartlett Regional Hospital. And we'll be meeting at Grants Plaza in the old Office Plus space. So you'll get an email announcing that, and please respond quickly so we can take care of the caterer. Maggie?
All right, my new friend of the day, 836-9206.
There we go, Jim. Congratulations. I want to thank everyone here at APH and for Smokehouse Catering for getting us back to our lunches. And thanks to all of you for registering early for today's luncheon. I encourage you to register for our in-person luncheon by Monday, 9 a.m. You will receive a special invitation today by email, and there's a link on the site. So with that, we're adjourned. See you next week at Grants Plaza.
So, anyway.
Oh, yeah. He probably has to well, actually, I'm reminding myself. That's what I